This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. A new study says downtown Winnipeg is seeing a slow recovery following the economic shock of the COVID-19 pandemic. CBC's Austin Grabish brings us the story tonight.
Young Ho Cho is trying to survive.
It's not back to normal now.
He's seen his business in Winnipeg Square cut in half some days. Cho used to have 5 employees. Now it's just him and his wife.
I hope, more people will come downtown.
Here in the skywalk from Portage Place to the Bay, all of this retail space is sitting empty. It's so quiet in here, you can literally hear the sound of a pin drop. Using cell phone traffic, researchers from the University of California, Berkeley found visits to the downtown this spring were less than half of what they were pre-pandemic.
So downtown Winnipeg is falling about in the middle or a little bit lower. It's not doing that well.
And while Winnipeg placed 45th out of the 62 North American cities surveyed, it still managed to do better than Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto.
And the reason it's doing better is because that downtown economy in Winnipeg is fairly diverse. There's a number of different sectors there.
Still, it doesn't take long to see that the downtown is hurting. On the ground, a sea of for-lease signs, a coffee shop gone, and this yoga studio soon set to close. At Rudy's restaurant in the Hydro building, this lunch rush brings some optimism. But business is still about half of what it was pre-pandemic.
It's a little unpredictable. You don't really know what to expect every day, but I think we are trending in the right direction.
Manager Mackenzie Robb says she's trying to come up with new ways to draw in traffic. Her hope for the future,
getting the numbers back to 100%.
Something she knows will take time and certainly won't happen overnight. Austin Grabish, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg's election is still 5 weeks away, but the CBC News decision desk can already declare a couple of winners. This afternoon was the deadline to run for elected office in this city. No one signed up to run against 2 city councillors. CBC's Bartley Kivas joins us now live from outside City Hall. So Bartley, which of the councillors already know they will be coming back to council?
Janet, Old Kildonan Councillor Debbie Sharma and Marcus Chambers from St. Norbert, St. River, they're going to be coming back for another term. Nobody signed up to run against them, so tomorrow they will be officially acclaimed. We caught up with Councillor Sharma and Councillor Chambers earlier today in the council chamber.
When I put my name on the ballot the first time 12 years ago, and the second time, the third time, and now again, I fully expect, and I think the public fully expects, other competitors to come forward. That is our democratic process. That's democracy in action. So from that perspective, it is disappointing.
It's not a matter of getting off easy. I think the work that I've done over these last 4 years, as well as the vision that I have for the next 4 years, are being rewarded in that regard.
Acclamations are actually quite rare at City Hall. We've only had 3 in the past 20 years. Way back in 2002, former councillors Gord Steeves and Dan Vandal, they were acclaimed. And 4 years ago, 2018, in Waverly West, Janice Lukes was acclaimed.
So Bartley, what about the mayoral race? We had 15 candidates registered to run. How many of them made the cut?
Only 11 of them made the cut. 4 did not, including Govind Thawani. He was here behind me in the administration building with the city clerks. They were trying to verify his signatures, but he fell 77 nominated signatures short. So who is running? There are 11 candidates, and I'll read them off to you in alphabetical order, depending how much time you have. They are Idris Adelakun, Rana Bakari, Chris Claccio, Scott Gillingham, Kevin Klein, Sean Loney, Jenny Mokaluk, Glenn Murray, Robert Falconet, Rick Shawn, and Don Woodstock. The Jenny Mokaluk was the only mayoral candidate out today making promises. We caught up with her. She said that she stands out from a field that includes a lot of veteran politicians, current and former politicians like Glenn Murray, Kevin Klein, Scott Gillingham, and Robert Falconet.
Among the well-known names are 4 men who collectively represent the last 25 years of Winnipeg's leadership. If everybody is very happy, if everybody thinks that Winnipeg is a city of opportunity and we're making nothing but money and it's all sunshine and rainbows, then you can choose any one of those 4 men that got us here today.
Okay, so we're working our way, Bartley, through the official process to get to the election. What happens next?
Tomorrow is the deadline for candidates for City Council and for the Mayor's office to withdraw. Advance voting begins on October 3rd and Election Day is on October 26th. Back to you, Janet.
Thank you, Bartley. CBC's Bartley Kivas reporting live tonight from outside City Hall. Now, as Bartley mentioned, Jenny Montkaluk was on the campaign trail today. She delivered an election promise, adding her name to the list of people who want Winnipeg to have a new police chief. Montkaluk says if she is elected mayor in October, she will ask the police board to get rid of Danny Smythe. Then she says she'll ask the province to get rid of the police board. Now, that would require a change in provincial legislation. Montkaluk also promised to hire transit police officers. Indigenous leaders came to City Hall today bearing gifts. Mayor Brian Bowman called a special meeting to accept them. CBC's Cameron McLean has the story.
As we receive these traditional and sacred items, we acknowledge their symbolism of our shared truths, history, and commitment to healing and reconciliation.
Members of the Treaty 1 First Nations, Dakota, Cree, Métis, and Inuit brought items to be permanently displayed in glass cases on the council floor, a visual representation of their shared history with the city and a commitment to the future.
We have to ensure that our relationship and the responsibilities that comes with having these types of items in your chambers is acknowledged in terms of the work that we do and the work that we need to do together.
You know, the symbolism behind the Eagle staff, you know, for us, it's a living spirit. It's a representation of governance. It's also about a sacred responsibility of doing right for the people, by the people.
For the Indigenous leaders present, the day marked a next step in the journey of reconciliation.
For me, it's coming full circle from a time that our people were not welcome to Winnipeg to now being acknowledged within the city council chambers.
When Brian Bowman first took office in 2014, he introduced land acknowledgements at City Hall for the first time. Now, with one of his last acts as mayor, he says displaying these items brings the city one step further on the path of reconciliation. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The new Democratic Party here in Manitoba is once again trying to whip up concern the PCs may privatize health care in Manitoba. Back in June, the Premier spoke to progressive Conservative supporters at a party gala and said this.
They set us back, and we are building for the future. Our government will look at innovative ways to increase capacity in our system with partnerships in the private and not-for-profit sectors.
Now, one example that's already happening is Manitoba's decision to send some spinal surgery patients to Fargo, North Dakota for treatment. The NDP calls the Premier's comments worrying.
Knowing what we know about the PCs, knowing what we know about the people who have the Premier's ear, we know that they want to increase access to private health care in Manitoba. And they're going to continue testing the limits of private health care and what they can get away with.
Now, the Progressive Conservative government has long said it is committed to the public health care system. It says right now, though, the public system needs help. Many First Nations in Manitoba don't have their own police force. Often the first people to respond to a crisis in the community are volunteers. One such volunteer died in the tragedy in James Smith Cree Nation in Saskatchewan recently. Now, as the CBC's Stephanie Cram explains, many First Nations here are reconsidering how they respond to crises.
Lydia Gloria Burns was one of the 10 victims in the James Smith Cree Nation tragedy. She was a crisis worker responding to a call. Her death highlights the lack of protective services on First Nations. Minnegozibi Anishinaabe Chief Derek Nepanak sees parallels in his northern Manitoba community. They have a volunteer crisis team who handles calls. It means Nepanak is rethinking who responds first.
They're going into volatile situations at times without the adequate resources to not only to intervene in the issue, but to even protect themselves from potential harm.
Manitoba ranks the second worst province in Canada for First Nations with a police force. According to the province, 18 of the 63 First Nations in Manitoba have an independent police force. 8 communities are served by the Manitoba First Nations Police Service. Another 10 have First Nations policing agreements with the federal and provincial governments.
The idea of having an external force like the RCMP or the Ontario Police provincial police come in and do policing in our communities, I think is quite opposite of the direction of self-government and self-determination that we're going for.
Bellegarde, who has worked for a Saskatchewan First Nations Police Board for over 20 years, says that Indigenous-run police forces are better suited to communities.
We have unique cultures, we have unique governance systems, we have unique languages, and we have our people, I think, deserve to be looked after by our own people.
In 2015, the province launched the First Nations Safety Officer Program in order to fill the gap in protective services on reserve. Safety officers have similar roles to peace officers. Chief Nipanak says the program is insufficient.
Community safety officers are essentially what I call glorified security guard. They're mandated to observe and report, and in emergency situations, call in the RCMP.
Derek Nipanak cautions that communities like his need more than just policing. They also need access to mental health and addiction services. Even communities with First Nations police forces say there are gaps. For example, in Swan Lake First Nation, there's a police force but no detachment. Stephanie Cram, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Dozens of students at the University of Manitoba rallied today in solidarity with protests in Kurdistan and Iran. The protests were sparked by the death of a 22-year-old woman who died in police custody. Mahsa Amini had been arrested for violating Iran's hijab rules. CBC's Riley Lachuk reports.
A passionate stance for an issue across the globe, yet so close to home for Saideh Mirzai.
Well, that was in anger, and I was releasing this for the hope that these tragedies will not happen and we can have a free country.
The University of Manitoba civil engineering PhD student chops her hair off in front of a crowd, protesting the arrest and death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in Iran. State police reportedly took issue with her hair partially uncovered out of her headscarf. She later died in hospital after what police said was a heart attack. Headscarves have been compulsory for all women in Iran since 1979. This is enforced, sometimes violently, by the country's morality police. For these students, Amani's death reinforces their desire for change in their home country and for other countries to step up.
We really want Western countries to support us. This is not the first one. This is not going to be the last one.
To be honest, I couldn't sleep over the last 3 nights, and I just cried. It was really appalling and terrifying.
Students here want Western governments to put pressure on Iran. Mirzai says it's bittersweet to be able to live freely in Canada while her loved ones and family back home cannot.
We want politicians to support us, to make them responsible. There are many pathways they can do.
People in Canada or West, they cannot believe what these things happen in the Middle East.
Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has ordered an investigation. Mirzai says many in her home country are left mourning Amani's death amid growing calls for change. Riley Lachuk, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meteorologist John Sauder joins us now. You're tracking some nastier weather on the way.
Nastier weather.
Because it's nice out now.
Yeah, pretty nice out there now. We're looking at blue sky here at Portage and Spence. And, to the north, we've got a low pressure system that is giving a bunch of rain to areas like Thompson and Norway House and off to the east from there. So let's start with the current conditions here in Winnipeg. Now, earlier we did get to 19 degrees, kind of hovering around 18 the last few hours. and now at 17, and the dew point is down to 7. It's a dry air mass, but west winds have been the story today, and we're kind of on the bottom end of that low pressure system that is to the north of us. We'll look at the maps in a second. You'll see how that's circulating, but winds now 41, gusting to 54, as strong as they've been through the day today, and the pressure continues to rise, but it'll change when the cold front goes through. So you can see the cloud associated on satellite and radar here with this low pressure system in central Manitoba. So you're looking at satellite imagery. That's what shows us where the cloud is. We don't have radar coverage this far north. If we did, this would all be covered in blue, and you'd sort of see the radar seeing the rain that's falling out of that cloud. So you can kind of see the circulation around this counterclockwise. It'll continue to move off into Ontario, and as it does, it'll start to bring some moisture down into southern Manitoba. We're starting to see a few of those little hit and miss showers in the northern Interlake, out in the Parklands region. But if you look at Futurecast, there's the low, and as we go into the overnight period, that kind of changes to a northwest wind, and the rain you see here around Swan River and Dauphin tonight will start to move down into the Red River Valley by morning. So overnight showers, and certainly some showers or rain in the morning, and then that kind of dissipates and continues to move down to the southeast through into the late afternoon and evening hours, and we still have a few showers around to the north. I'm hoping for more of a sun-cloud mix than what you're seeing here in the Red River Valley, but there certainly is some clearing out to the west of us and the western edge of the province, and that's thanks to high pressure in Saskatchewan that by Wednesday night, Thursday morning really makes a move into southern Manitoba. So, clear skies at this time of year, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. That means chilly air moving our way, and I think this is our first chance for a really good widespread frost all across southern Manitoba. I think by this time on Thursday morning, we'll be looking at the thermometer and it'll say 0 to +1, that kind of thing. Tomatoes, flowers outside, get the blankets and sheets over them on Wednesday night before bed. Thursday turns out to be a sunny day. Seasonal temps, lots of sunshine to the north as well, but at that point, we're looking to the southwest for the next rain-making low-pressure system moving our way for Friday, and again, a bit of a cool down as we head into Friday. So rainfall amounts over the next 12 to 18 hours, not really all that impressive, maybe 4 in Winnipeg, lots of 1s, a little bit higher around Dauphin, Swan River, and just a trace of rain to a millimeter out in northwestern Ontario. So 7 degrees tonight. Normal low is 5. We've got a chance of showers overnight and tomorrow morning, and then 9 degrees in the morning, and in the afternoon, it's a sun-cloud mix, a cool 13 with still a northwest wind at 25 to 30 kilometers per hour. There's the 16. Well, there's the frosty morning there, that risk of frost on Thursday morning, 16 in the afternoon, 13 with the showers on Friday, and a high of 17 on Saturday with some afternoon and evening showers possible.
Weather Update is brought to you by Home Equip, your trusted local source for Pride Mobility scooters. From sales to rental and repair, our team is here to serve you.
Fall is in the air, and in many Manitoba communities, so is the scent of roast turkey and home baking. It is fall supper season in our province. Corey Jackson is one of the volunteers who works to serve up the fall supper in Woodridge, Manitoba. She joins us now from her home. Hi, Corey. How are you?
Hi, Janet. I'm great.
Last year, with the pandemic restrictions, you had a drive-through takeout supper in Woodridge. Not as much fun. You had a fall supper just this past weekend with everybody back in the community center again. What was that like?
It was amazing. The energy was so positive. I think people have a real thirst to get out. A better time of the year to do so than fall, when you have many rural communities hosting fall suppers. And like I say, we hosted ours last Saturday and we were sold out.
How would you describe a fall supper to someone who's never been to one?
Well, first of all, you're going to enjoy a feast. It's usually a smorgasbord of food. Not unlike our fall supper, we had turkey and stuffing and cabbage rolls, meatballs, and there's pumpkin pie, apple pie. So it's, again, a great opportunity to enjoy some of the home-cooked meals that the volunteers prepare. And it's also an excellent opportunity to reconnect or connect with neighbors, friends, and family from, I guess, say for us, they come from far and wide, not just locally.
Now, you've been volunteering in Woodridge for a number of years, as have many other people in your community. Why do you do it year after year?
Well, I think it's we enjoy hosting. Like I say, we are very community minded. So again, it's just an event where we bring community together. It is also a fundraiser for our community clubs. So the money that we raise through our fall supper and other events through the year help to support the programs we offer through our community club, as well as, undertaking some capital projects. So it has, like I say, a wonderful, tradition in our community. We've been doing it for the better part of 20 years. I've been involved for the last 8. It's a lot of hard work. There's literally weeks of planning, and then, like I say, when it comes to the actual fall supper itself, we spend 3 or 4 days in the kitchen just cooking feverishly. We do it with enthusiasm, and it is always, again, an opportunity, like I say, to bring our community together. So that, for us, is all important.
So hard work, but I'm imagining also some laughs in that kitchen.
Oh, it never feels like real work. Like I say, we do work hard, but I had to have some fun along the way. And like I say, and the day when we have the actual event, we get a lot of positive feedback from the community that supports our fall supper. So it is rewarding in that way as well.
Okay, let's talk about the food. In your opinion, what makes or breaks a good fall supper?
Well, the fact that it's done by volunteers who care about making the experience a positive one for everyone who attends. It's generally home cooked. We cook, and it's usually a nice mix of all kinds of foods. Some communities have, tradition focusing around culture. And like I say, with us, it's always a little different from year to year. And this year we sort of, like I say, we went with the turkey, but we had a couple of nice side dishes as well. And again, it's, what you can put on a 10-inch plate, like I say, is always a bit of a challenge for anyone who joins us as a guest when they go through our buffet line.
Corey Jackson, volunteer with the Woodridge Fall Supper team. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Janet.
Don't forget to subscribe to our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. You'll find headlines there. You'll find this whole newscast. You can go back, watch interviews again. If you missed something, want to share it, it'll all be there. After the break, the soaring cost of food in Canada. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. There is a little relief on the inflation front in Canada. Statistics Canada reports the annual inflation rate slowed to 7% in August. That's down from 7.6% in July. But most of us aren't likely going to notice that improvement as grocery prices increased at their highest rate in more than 40 years. CBC's Nisha Patel has more.
At the grocery store, everyone knows it.
Food prices are unbelievably expensive right now.
I gotta tell you, you stop and think before you put it in the basket now.
If you buy something very few or small amount, but you pay very high prices.
Today's inflation numbers show grocery bills are still climbing. The price of bakery products rose more than 15%. Fresh fruit cost 13% more. Fish and seafood prices were up 9%. Meanwhile, many homeowners are coping with higher mortgage costs as interest rates soar.
Obviously, there's a lot of pain for households right now because especially lower income households are spend a greater proportion of their income on food and the basic necessities.
Consumers are paying a little less at the pumps. Gas prices fell almost 10% last month. And around the world, prices for commodities like grain are cooling. That's all helping slow inflation here at home, though most prices are still rising, just not as fast as before. In PEI, Mary Matthews is seeing more families turn to her thrift shop as they try to trim their budgets.
Every household is probably asking themselves, how can I make it this month?
She hasn't raised her prices yet, but soon she may have to.
You still got to pay your rent. You still got to pay your heat and lights.
Jennifer Cullen is here shopping secondhand for her young family.
My kids are very active and they grow very fast, so I'm changing shoes and clothes every 2 months with one of my boys. I can always use one of those.
While this keeps some money in her pocket, she's also cutting back in other ways.
Buying stuff on sale, using our bike more, those sort of things, saying no to Starbucks.
Small changes that could add up to some savings at a time when every penny counts. Inflation has slowed for 2 months in a row, but it's still well above the central bank's target. Experts say it will take much more to convince the Bank of Canada that it can press pause on its interest rate hikes. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Parliament has officially returned for the fall session. The Liberal government introduced its plan to provide Canadians with some relief from the high cost of living, and Pierre Poilievre stood for his first question period as leader of the Conservative opposition. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg reports.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The new leader of the Conservative Party got right to it. Pierre Poilievre sparring with the Liberal government over the high cost of living.
Housing prices have literally doubled in this country under this Prime Minister. And now, with rising interest rates, which this government promised would not happen anytime soon, families have to spend 50% of their income just to keep a roof over their head, the highest in over 3 decades. And the solution from the Liberals? Higher taxes on gas, groceries, and paychecks.
After a 12-week break, the House of Commons returns to a fall session in what the Liberal House Leader calls an enormously tumultuous time for Canadians. His message to the Conservatives: this is not a time for games.
This is a serious hour that demands us to rise to the occasion with the best of our ability and to offer people all that we have to provide them solutions. So if, there's a continuance of the circus, then, they'll have to see who will buy tickets. But I don't think that's what people want.
The government introduced legislation meant to help Canadians struggling to get by. They will double the GST credit. Low-income renters would get a one-time check of $500. Children under the age of 12 could get up to $650 a year to go to the dentist. Legislation that was brokered through a deal the Liberals made with the NDP.
These are things that New Democrats have delivered and we have fought to make this government do, despite the fact they made it clear they didn't want to do anything and were opposed to things like Dental just a year ago, and now we forced them to do it.
These programs will cost an extra $3 billion. The Conservatives say that will only make inflation worse. The Liberals say that's not the case, and that this new spending is just a drop in the bucket meant to help Canadians who need it the most. This on a day when inflation went down, but the price of groceries went up. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Russia is making a dramatic attempt to consolidate its territorial gains in Ukraine. Separatist leaders have ordered referendums on permanently joining Russia starting later this week. This is widely seen as a desperate move by Moscow as it suffers mounting losses in its war with Ukraine. CBC's Katie Simpson reports.
Ukrainian forces have been moving at lightning speed, taking back thousands of kilometers of Russian-occupied territory in just a matter of weeks. With its soldiers on the run, Moscow is urgently trying to hold on to the gains it's made, calling snap referendums on joining Russia in the Ukrainian territory it still controls. We have charted a course to rejoin Russia, and there is no turning back, says Vladimir Saldo, the Russian-backed separatist leader of Kherson, one of 4 regions where votes will be held in a matter of days. Russia has been denounced for using this strategy in the past. It pointed to a 2014 referendum, which was neither a free nor fair vote, to justify its illegal annexation of Crimea. At the United Nations General Assembly, Ukraine's foreign minister dismissed the referendum.
It will not change anything.
Sorry?
The Russians can do whatever they want. It will not change anything.
The White House described Russia as growing more desperate, calling the vote a sham.
The United States will never recognize Russia's claims to any purportedly annexed parts of Ukraine. and we will never recognize this territory as anything other than a part of Ukraine.
The White House says another sign of possible Russian desperation. Moscow may be getting closer to a general mobilization, warning it appears Russia is recruiting more soldiers, more resources, and may be ready to put more effort into its invasion. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
We're going to bring you the latest on Hurricane Fiona after the break, and then take you to Thunder Bay for the Wake the Giant Music Festival. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Hurricane Fiona blasted the Turks and Caicos island chain in the Caribbean today as a powerful Category 3 storm, packing winds of up to 185 kilometers an hour and dumping heavy rains on the region. That's raising flooding worries. Fiona has already left a path of destruction through the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. At least 3 deaths are being blamed on the storm. More than 1 million Dominicans are without water, and most of Puerto Rico is without power. Forecasters say Fiona will likely strengthen to a Category 4 in coming days as it approaches Bermuda. It's expected to reach Atlantic Canada over the weekend. Meteorologist John Sauder has been tracking this as well. It's scary to think of it gaining strength.
Yeah, you know, hurricanes will gain strength over water because water is smooth and they gain their energy really from the evaporating warm ocean waters. And that's why so late in the season this storm is so powerful, because the water is still very, very warm. Let's talk about the path of the storm. It is still a Category 3. There you see the location. The winds right now are still that strong at 185 kilometers per hour. This system updates these conditions every couple of hours, so this is very recent. Moving north-northwest at 13 kilometers per hour, and the central pressure is 957 millibars, and that is low. You can see the satellite imagery there. We take that out, we watch the track of it as it starts to head a little more north and then up to the northeast. And by early in the morning on Thursday, it starts to get back into a Category 4. Even on Wednesday afternoon, winds here are 215 to about 220 kilometers per hour later in the day on Thursday. Still a Category 4 as we head into early Friday, then Friday afternoon, and then as we see it entering the areas around Atlantic Canada just before it reaches just off the coast of Cape Breton Island on Saturday morning or early afternoon. It'll be a Category 2 and then quickly drop to a post-tropical depression, and things start to improve on Saturday evening and certainly on Sunday in maritime Canada. So this hurricane will lose strength again over land, and we'll keep an eye on this over the coming days and see how things are progressing. Right now in Winnipeg, 17, 18 down at the Forks, 19 over in Morris, and 17 in Steinbach. Rest of southern Manitoba looks like this, mid-teens, as you would expect this time of year. Normal high is now 17, normal low is now 5. So a lot of this is pretty seasonal. This is where we've got the rain. Norway House, Thompson, out through Island Lake and Gillam tonight, and some of that happening tonight around Flin Flon and the Paw, and then into early tomorrow. So forecast conditions look like this. Showers overnight for most areas around northwestern Ontario. Lows anywhere from 5 to 9. Now, the cloud is going to keep us a little bit on the warmer side as we head into the night tonight. And there's a less of a chance of a shower closer to the international border tonight. Areas like Emerson, over into Morden, Brandon as well, just a mainly cloudy 7, but showers and 7s for Swan River and for Dauphin. Across into northern Manitoba tonight, an additional 5 millimeters for Island Lake. We've got cloudy skies in Thompson, an evening rain that should wrap up after midnight in Norway House, and some evening rain, then showers in Flin Flon, but 5 to 10 millimeters tonight in and around the Paw. And then morning rain turns to afternoon sunny breaks for the west and on through Thompson. We'll see clearing as well in the afternoon in Gillam. And it's a sun-cloud mix in Churchill, 9 degrees, but the morning winds are still gusting to about 50, and they do quiet down in the afternoon. And then across into southern Manitoba, we've got a few showers in the morning, followed by a sun-cloud mix. And the sun will show up a little earlier in the west. with that high pressure moving in from Saskatchewan. I think we'll see some sunny breaks at least in the afternoon here in Winnipeg and out through Steinbach, certainly around Pinawa and Sprague and the Whiteshell. And then on into northwestern Ontario, it is a cloudy day with showers in most regions, but just a cloudy 12 in Fort Frances.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.